Bodean here. Welcome back. And if you're new, welcome aboard. So you work your whole life and then you retire and you finally collect that Social Security. And then you hear someone say, you know, it might be taxable. And that kind of stops you in your tracks. And one of the things it did for me is made me ask questions and wanted to know how Social Security tax actually works. Well, it works because Social Security is taxed. The only benefits you have there is if you're married, it is basically $32,000 and under, you're not taxed. And if you're single, $25,000 a year and under are not taxed. And there's some different rules there because federal tax and state tax are completely different. There are state rules for taxing, and there are the federal rules. Now, the federal rules say that they can tax up to 80% of your Social Security depending on your income level. But most everybody generally falls around that 50% of the Social Security income is taxable. So let me be clear on that. The percentage that you're taxed, of course, is one thing, and the percentage of what you're taxed on is something else. So they can tax up to 80% of your Social Security depending on your earnings, which I found extremely interesting in what the breakdowns were. And I'm not a whiteboard kind of guy and give you all the details on it, but just into what I ran into when I'm going through retirement. So you definitely want to check on the IRS website and also the Social Security website because they are taxable. But one of the things as I was going through this and retiring is I thought that once I retired, it wouldn't much matter as far as the taxes go. Well, then I really started looking into it and wondering how heavily is it taxed, and that's what I found. And even the federal side is taxed pretty heavy. So you're going to get taxed state and feds, but your state tax, a lot of states don't tax it, and some take very little, and some are fairly high. There are tax breaks depending on your age and income level, and the feds have tax breaks as high as, gosh, I think it's $6,000 deduction for single and $12,000 deduction for married. So when you look at $12,000 deduction for married, that's pretty significant. So depending on where your income level is, it's going to have a different effect. And one of the things that I always like to talk about is what I ran into, through retirement. And that's one of the big ones because I think taxes are fairly significant versus income, especially if you're going to work on top of your Social Security. So if you're going to work part-time and try to draw a wage, all that, of course, you're going to pay your taxes as normal. And that's how work is, right? You're going to be a W-2 employee, make a little extra money, they're going to tax that. You add that to your Social Security, they're going to tax it again. So that's one of the biggest concerns that I had is when you're looking at this and stacking incomes, where's it going to be and how is it going to play out? So a big thing for me is working your whole life and finding that out. That's just a huge draw in the taxation game. And a lot of people are worried about taxes in retirement, and it makes perfect sense. And I suggest that you really do the research on it. Because as I've been moving forward and getting closer to getting that Social Security check, I need to find out where that sweet spot is based on my state. If I ever wanted to go back to work and pull a part-time income, where is that sweet spot? Because it could be a little more difficult if you're making a lot of money or if you're making $40,000 or $50,000 a year combined with your Social Security. The taxes on that could be pretty heavy, so you need to plan for that. I mean, a lot of us figure we're retired and we don't have to worry about it. We can put money in savings, and that money that's in savings might just have to go to pay the taxes. So, been pretty interesting so far. They tell me that mine's going to probably be coming in March. I filed last month on the 10th of February and been waiting to hear back. So I didn't hear anything. The website's just sitting dormant. Nothing's happening on my application. But when I called in, they say it's actually happening in the backfield. And first thing I called this morning, and right out of the gate, they started telling me, do you know what it means when you retire at 62? Do you know that that's your income and that you can only make so much? I mean, all this research they wanted to start sharing with me, it's almost like they didn't want me to file. Like they wanted me to withdraw my application and not retire at 62. I get there's a concern with the income that you have, that small amount of income that you get from a Social Security check. But again, I've positioned myself. And that's one of the reasons the channel exists is because I positioned myself to be able to retire and not have to get back in the workforce full time, maybe part-time in the future, but being able to pay off the debt, stop the burn rate, and be able to, again, pay down all those debts with that income that we got coming in now from Social Security and my wife back to work, and it helps dramatically. But that's what brought up the taxes. My wife working, me drawing Social Security. What happens? I had some unemployment. What about that income? Is it taxable? All income is taxable. And that brings me to the next phase. When do taxes stop? The answer to that is never. So I looked that up on site as well, and it never stops. You're going to pay taxes forever. And there's no real break on age. So what happens there is it's based on that income. So as we get older, maybe we make a little less and we'll fall out of that taxation game. But as long as you have income coming in, it is taxable until you hit those ranges. Again, under $32,000 married, under $25,000 single. So maybe as we get older, we can't work, and that's going to be your Social Security, and you're going to only draw $32,000 a year or under. You're safe, and you don't have to pay the taxes. The other thing I want to state is just because you're retired, and just because you're, getting older, whatever it may be, if you owe taxes to the IRS, you're going to have to pay those as well. And the biggest thing is they can actually take it out of your Social Security if they wanted to. They could garnish the Social Security attached to it. And I believe the max they can take is 15%. I really didn't look that number up. A couple of years ago I did, when I had a problem with somebody who was getting a loan, and I found that out. And the other thing is student loans. You're not going to get out of student loans, and you're not going to get out of those. You can get payment arrangements, but if you don't, and you don't pay attention to those things when you go into retirement, they're going to find you, and they'll make sure that they attach and get their money. So be sure you stay on top of those things. You're better off in a payment arrangement than you are running up into a problem with the IRS or on student loans. So get on those things before you retire, because you don't want a problem going into it and not budget for those things. I was reading online that a lot of people don't budget in for that, and it is really important because there's a lot of people out there with student loans or maybe that owe some taxes. And the other thing is with taxes, you can get on the website and you can talk to the IRS. You can negotiate a lot of those things as well with hardship cases as your income goes down. So I wanted people to be aware of that, but taxes to me are fairly important going into Social Security. I wanted to share it with you. Are you going to need to pay taxes on Social Security? If you're married and over $32,000, yes. And if you're single and over $25,000, yes. Other than that, you're fairly safe. Thanks everybody for following along. I appreciate it. Remember to do something nice for somebody today. Do something nice for yourself. Do something every day to make yourself feel better. And thank you for following along. We'll see you in the next one.